Hello students, welcome to this video, Management Information Systems. We're going to look at ethics and information security. Go over this little chapter. We will review it. Let's take a look at a good example of how different countries approach information security. Europe in the last 6 or 7 years is covered by the world's strongest data protection rules called General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. Came into effect May 2018. And basically it's a very strict set of rules and guidelines, procedures to basically ensure the consumer, the individual, that their data, that their personal data is being kept secure and only for the purpose of what it was intended for. And they have the right to refuse to give information. And the businesses have to ask specifically for the information and to use it for that purpose. Whereas U.S. laws, Canada is somewhat a little closer to Europe. U.S. seems to be a little bit more free in that way. In the U.S., there is no single comprehensive federal law. They have different state laws and different sector-specific laws, health, health rules, guidelines, procedures, things governing children, financial, banking industries as well. But basically the big difference in the States is that they use the opt-out requirement. So basically the default is you as the consumer, you are giving if your information's asked for or needed or wanted, the default is that the business has more freedom to use that information. So it's an opt-out. If you don't want your information used, you have to go through a process to make sure that it's not being used. So the default is opt-in, whereas with Europe and some parts of Canada, it's the opt-in. So I have to specifically approve the use of my personal data for this specific purpose. So US has an opt-out clause, whereas Europe definitely the opt-in, and Canada moving towards that opt-in. And there are some differences with rights, regulations, responsibilities, enforcement, penalties. Europe, very strict. USA depends on the actual law, whether it's child-based or medical, financial, banking-based. But they are generally lower and less consistent than the one in Europe. There's new laws in Canada that are making it a little more strict. So that's what we're talking about when we get into Chapter 4, is the ethics and the use of personal data and how we as consumers, what the laws are, how we can protect our data, what companies need to do to protect the use of our data. Because you may have been in situations where your data from a business has been compromised. What is their responsibility? What are the repercussions for that business, and what can you do to if there's any type of data that's gone missing. Let's take a look here. Ethics and security. Ethics, the principles and standards that guide our behavior toward other people. Ethical dilemmas usually arise, they're not simple. There's no simple clear-cut solution, but it's a difficult decision process. That's why they're called ethical dilemmas. There's no clear, simple solution. There's going to be a lot of thought needed to arrive at a solution. So ways that information is misused or abused, or that our security of our data has been perhaps violated. Individuals basically are able to copy, use, distribute software, whether it's illegally downloading movies or music from different servers. Different countries have different laws. What is the repercussion of doing that, and how do we make sure that we are all behaving ethically? And as we'll discuss in this chapter, ethics and legalities are different. In some countries, it's not illegal to do so, but is it more? It still could be defined as being unethical. Whereas some countries, copying, use, distributing software is illegal, plus it's unethical. Employees search organizational databases for sensitive corporate personal information, kind of business spying there. Organizations collect and buy and use information without checking the validity or accuracy of the information. So they may have your information. One business may have your information. They might sell it to someone else. And it's not coincidence that if you ever do any online shopping and you have to enter your email address or your phone number, that it's not a coincidence that, hold it, now I'm getting all these text messages from different parts of the world, or I'm getting all these emails asking for different things, or saying that transaction has not gone through. Please click on this link to ensure that that your funds are safe. Never click on something that is not from your bank. So it's not a coincidence, that organization is sharing, or the process, that transaction of your data has not been secure, which is another element that we'll talk about. Individuals create and spread viruses that cause trouble for those using and maintaining IT systems. So we're not talking about a cold. We're talking about deliberate coding that has been that your computer has been affected with. You open up something, and because you've opened up something on a network, it's going to affect other users as well. So that's a big no-no if you're working in any type of medium-sized business where there's shared access to to the network. So let's move on to the next slide here. Information ethics, confidentiality, information ethics, privacy. Confidentiality, the assurance that messages and information remain available only to those authorized to view them. So is our information confidential? Information ethics governs the ethical and moral issues arising from the development and use of information technologies. And privacy, the right to be left alone when you want to be, to have control over your personal possessions, including your information. Privacy is an ethical issue. Numerous examples of ethical issues surrounding IT. Napster. You may have heard of Napster. That's been a long time ago, but basically it was a file sharing process that they could then share music, movies, and so forth. So violated some copyright laws. Let's go on to slide 5 here. Some different terminology, information ethics, copyright, the legal protection afforded an expression of an idea, song, video game, movie. There's a copyright attached to it, so you can't copy it. Counterfeit software, having something that's copied and sold as the original. Intellectual property, patents, pirated software, unauthorized use, duplication, distribution, or sale of copyrighted software. When I lived in the Middle East, there were individuals selling going house to house kind of thing, selling pirated movies for like a fraction of the cost kind of thing. And there's an organization that is in the process of being fined or jailed because they had set up a pirated streaming service. And I believe they're from Canada, and they had downloaded different movies, made them available for a subscription, and they got caught, and they're in the process of being dealt with. I'll make that link available under the extra reading section. I believe that they did not give up, they were found they did not give up the passwords for some of their servers, so they are facing up to 5 years of jail time for contempt of court. You know, as soon as they give the passwords, they are no longer in jail for that offense, contempt of court, but then they would be jailed for basically bootlegging different movies and so forth. They did this for several years. I'll make that available because it's very interesting. So let's move on to legal versus ethical. So there is a difference between what's legal and what's ethical. Some ethically questionable or acceptable use of information listed below. As I've said, individuals copy, use, and distribute software. Individuals hack into computer systems to steal information. Employees destroy, steal information. It's all about employees. Got to change that next time. Oops. Let's go into this one. So just a little matrix table showing the 4 different situations that can arise. You know, if it's ethical and legal, defined as like quadrant 1 type of activity or business. It could be ethical but illegal. It could be unethical but still legal. And then, of course, if it's unethical and illegal, most people would agree that it's illegal, and then it's also would be defined as being unethical in that upper right section, quadrant 4. So just showing the 4 quadrants, keeping in mind that ethical and legal are not the same. Generally, they are, and it depends on lots of things. Depends on culture, depends on the time as well. There's the things that legal things can change, whereas generally we believe that ethical situations have stayed the same, at least in cultures, because there's some cultural differences as well. But generally, in whatever culture, what was unethical once generally would still be considered unethical today, whereas legal and illegal does change over time. Generally, there's a few examples of things that may have been ethical once and now are not ethical, but generally speaking, those things are a little slower to change. Data scraping, the process of extracting large amounts of data from a website and saving it to a spreadsheet or computer. And of course, some information you're free to do so if you're using that information for other purposes, illegal purposes or unethical purposes, and that of course would not be right. Digital trust, measure of consumer partner employee confidence in the organization's ability to protect and secure data and the privacy of individuals. Do we have trust when we give our information to, say, the pharmacy, for example, that information is going to be kept secure? So carrying on, email privacy policy. Just say most organizations do have policies in regards to company emails. So just make sure that you are aware of them, that you're using them appropriately. So just highlighting a few of the things here. Spam, anti-spam policy, opt-out, opt-in. Basically different elements of a policy. Let's go here. Employee monitoring is a risk management obligation. Workplace monitoring is a concern for many employees. So is your workplace being monitored? Some companies do so. They can track key logging, the keystrokes. They can track other elements of it. Some companies with specific secure data and information do so. Some organizations prohibit the use of personal emails on workstations or even your personal phone near that workstation. So of course, just be aware of what that policy is and follow it. Information security. Let's take a look at this. Information security, downtime is a big thing. Refers to a period of time when a system is unavailable. Of course, more downtime you have, there are certain costs that arise because of that. Lost sales, lost productivity, significant costs. So we want to minimize that downtime. We want to minimize that downtime, which means that we want to make sure that we are not being, that our data centers, our networks are being secure. So cyber attacks, malicious attempts to access or damage a computer system, and cybersecurity involves that prevention, detection, response to cyber attacks. So big growing field, because cyber attacks seem to be happening all over the place. Accelerated process. Let's go here. This basically little table shows sources of unplanned downtime. Can strike at any time, any number of reasons. So some are malicious, some are just accidental, some are acts of God. Various things are going to happen. It's going to cause downtime. Any downtime is bad time because it does come with a cost. So if you can restrict some of the things dealing with, say, hackers, of course, then you can increase or you can decrease your downtime. And there's different things you can do to ensure that some of these things are going to be more controllable, but not all of them preventable. You just want them to be highly unlikely. How much will downtime cost your business? There's different sources for that downtime. Financial performance, lost revenues, cash flow problems, other expenses, and of course damaged reputation, that perhaps that goodwill is going down. Customers may lose trust or respect, or word gets out that the system's always down, there's always some type of problem. So just highlighting the need to make sure that your computer system is secure. Hackers, just some information here. We're not going to talk about how to hack, because that would not be ethical and in this country illegal. But various types of hackers. The black hat hacker, we'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail. Cracker, the cyber terrorist, the hacktivist, script kiddies or script bunnies, white hat hacker. So different types doing different things for most of the time for malicious purposes. The white hat ethical hacker, basically the nicest of the hackers. They work at the request of the system owners to find system vulnerabilities and plug the holes. So they're the good guys. The black hat hackers, they break into other people's computer systems and may just look around. or may steal and destroy information. So of course not good. Cracker, that hacker with a criminal intent. Cyber terrorists, basically trying to destroy critical systems. Hacktivists, philosophical, political reasons, hacking into systems based on their current protest issue. Script kiddies, script bunnies, finding hacking code on the internet and click and point their way into systems to cause damage or spread viruses. So basically they find hacking code and they basically use that to, because they don't create their own, more or less, they use that to cause damage and spread viruses. Virus, software written with malicious intent to cause annoyance or damage. Different types of viruses. Spyware, malware. Your computer system may have some protection for some of these as well. So the spyware, worm, malware, adware. Some more common ransomware is generally going to happen to the large businesses where they'll lock out your system and they will basically say, give me some money or your system will be unlocked or will be locked forever or damaged or the data will be stolen. Those specific ones more defined. I'm not going to read them. That's for your own reading pleasure. A virus, different types of or different ways viruses can be implemented. We've got the backdoor virus, backdoor program, polymorphic virus, Trojan horse virus, different types. There they are defined. Different examples of them. First line of defense, how do we defend against and make sure our system is secure? How do we defend against those hackers? Basically, the first line of defense is the people, the employees, employers, the staff. What people can do. Basically, the first line of defense is making sure that we have communicated the policies, the information security policies, and the plan to all staff members. Everyone reads it, everyone understands that when you get an unsolicited email with an attachment or a link, you don't open it up. There's different ways that you can create awareness and isolate that email so IT staff can look at it, make sure it's good. And it happens with any kind of small, medium, large size company that something could be spread through email, even on your own personal systems. So make sure you never open up anything that you're not expecting. Second line of defense, technology. 3 primary information technology security areas. There they are. And authentication, authorization, identity theft, not nice process if you have ever been involved in that. It's not nice. Basically, you're forging someone's identity for the purpose of fraud. Two means of stealing an identity are phishing and farming. So phishing is a technique to gain personal information for the purpose of identity theft. Fraudulent emails. Basically, they're sending out emails to everybody possible, and basically hoping that one person will bite, and then they've caught somebody. Farming reroutes requests for legitimate websites to false websites. You may get an email that looks like it's from your bank. You click on it, looks like it's from your bank. Always check the sender's email. Because sometimes it'll say like a bank name at something, but then when you actually look into that email, it's just, someone's personal Hotmail or Gmail address there. So basically that link, it may look like it's a legitimate link, but it takes you to a website that's false, but it really does look like a legitimate site. And then you enter all your information, and then you've given them some part of your personal information, and your identity is at risk. So that's a quick overview of Chapter 4.